Welcome back to another episode of SA Explained. I'm joined by Yusuf Abramjee. I'm not alone this time around, and we're going to be chatting everything Madlanga Commission and the external SAPS operations that are taking place, the arrests, and of course the controversial issues and some of the challenges that are confronting some of these senior SAPS officials, and of course the criminal justice system. Yusuf, thank you very much for joining me. For the first time you're here.
Thank you, Pule.
Yeah. How has it been?
Well, never a dull moment in South Africa. We know that we often say blood, bodies and bullets has become a way of life. We know crime affects each and every South African. And we know that the revelations at the Madlanga Commission have been keeping yourself and myself very busy because almost by the week there have been arrests and some high-profile arrests, a lot of revelations at the Madlanga Commission, and South Africans are glued to watching the drama unfolding. This is a real soap opera unfolding in South Africa for the past few months.
Before we get into some of the central wheelers and dealers, like you'll say, I just want to touch about phase 2 of the Madlanga Commission, right? We've seen a number of witnesses come back. We've seen Julius Mkhwanazi come back. In fact, the commissioners had said that they may have to probe as to whether he lied or misled the commission when he said he was going to a funeral of his mother, because it turned out it was actually not his mother, but his stepmother. So there was an issue around that. But they also focused on the city of Tshwane. I know you've covered extensively some of the operations of TMPD interviewing Yolanda Faro, chief of police. Then Umashi Dlamini was placed on precautionary suspension, the issue around the city manager and the contracts there. Take us through that. How did you view the conduct of some of these witnesses, but also how the commission was probing?
Pule, I've said it from the very beginning. If there was no Madlanga Commission, we wouldn't have been here today. If General Mkhwanazi, Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi, didn't stand up last year with that media conference making all these allegations, no arrests would have been made, or very few arrests would have been made. So clearly, what's coming out from the Madlanga Commission is the criminal justice system, as we often say, under the spotlight. The rot is coming out. But again, I believe it's only a small chunk of what is happening. A lot of things haven't come before the commission as yet, and I don't think will come before the commission. We know that the time frame is limited. We know that there was an extension in their mandate. And we know that the commission is currently taking a 2-week break to prepare the second interim report that will be forwarded to the president by the end of the month. In the first report, there were at least 6 law enforcement officials, and I say law enforcement because one is was a deputy EMPD chief, Julius Mkhwanazi, that has been heavily implicated at the commission. We know that the number of cops implicated has not come to an end. We were together last week, Pule, on Friday, when the drama unfolded, when Brown Mogotsi, yes, I call him a wheeler and dealer, you can call him a businessman like some people call him, you can call him a middleman, whatever the case may be. When he brought a recusal application for the chief evidence leader, I think we were all taken by surprise, because let's not forget that Matthew Cheskelson is no fool. And during the legal arguments, it was clear that Mogotsi was just trying to delay his testimony before the commission, and he failed. And we also know that Mogotsi took only certain selective messages, and that prompted the commission, or the evidence, one of the evidence leaders, Adila Hessam, senior counsel, to say that he needs to be investigated for contraventions of the Commission's Act, for possible defeating the ends of justice and perjury. And when Mogotsi was then ordered to take the stand, I think that is when we really saw the true side of Brown Mogotsi, evading questions. All he said probably a few hundred times in that 4 or 5 hours before the commission last Friday was, let me not incriminate myself. I don't want to incriminate myself. And what happened next? We had word while the evidence was continuing that there was a J50.
I think it was around 5:30. We were still sitting inside.
A warrant of arrest.
And there was movement inside the venue where we are. In fact, we saw one lady coming in, and we were notified that actually this is an officer from SAPS who's actually monitoring the situation, and they would be coordinating his arrest. I want to know, why did it not take him to Khosi Mampuru? Because we understood he was going to go there, but later taken to another police station, which police say we shouldn't disclose.
No, let's recap. The J50, the warrant of arrest, was issued around the 17th of April.
Correct.
The big question, Pule, is why was the warrant not executed? I'm of the view that police waited, and they were very strategic because they wanted to make sure that Brown Mogotsi testified and he was done at the commission. And that's exactly what happened. At 6:05, the commission wrapped up on Friday. Yes, we were told that they're going to arrest him on route back either to the northwest or to Johannesburg. Police were waiting, we are told, at the prison outside Pretoria. But what happened was they decided to follow him from the commission right on the N1 to Johannesburg, and between Pretoria and Joburg, where we stopped shortly after he was arrested, and we broke the news. That is where he was arrested and then taken to a police station in Johannesburg. We didn't mention that police station because our sources and police asked us not to for safety and security reasons, and that is where he is being detained. Let's recap. Brown Mogotsi, and he'll be back in court on Monday, continuing or rather applying for bail, was arrested for allegedly staging his own assassination.
Correct.
We know this character was in Vosloorus on that particular evening in November last year. That is where shots were fired in his car. And from the very beginning, right here on ENCA, a witness told us that they're suspecting something very suspicious, that this appears to be a staged assassination
I must say
or
also,
attempted assassination.
I must say, like, hat off to Naomi Kobe, who was there on the scene as well, who was speaking to, found this witness and they spoke together. But you were on the pulse, Yusuf. I remember giving you a call that morning. You were saying, look, you were a bit skeptical. You're like, this is probably classical Brown Mogotsi again.
I was very skeptical from the beginning because there you have a car that Brown Mogotsi was apparently using. It's got no license disc. It belongs to a dealership in Johannesburg. And again, when the ballistic experts combed that scene and looked at the car, my sources said to me immediately, something is not right. He wasn't even hit. Several shots were fired. And that is where the investigation began. And like we reported last week and Friday, that investigation was completed a few weeks ago. And that is why they decided to get a warrant of arrest for him. And I wouldn't be surprised, Pule, that we're going to see more arrests for in the case of Brown Mogotsi. Police still have to recover the gun that was used in that alleged attempted assassination. Which
is linked to multiple murders, like you're saying.
Which is linked to multiple murders. We are told to some shootings in Alroda Park, in Roodepoort. The gun has to be found. And I wouldn't be surprised if rogue cops or some of them associated with rogue cops are going to be arrested and are involved, because our sources within the investigations are saying that you'll be shocked when we make some more arrests in this case.
Which makes sense, because I remember when General Kadwa and of course General Firoz Khan were arrested on a Sunday and taken in by members of GCI Ops. We know PKTT was part of the operations at times as well. We reported a few days ago that there was a raid that took place in Bryanston. It's just, we were quite busy with other things at Madlanga Commission, but the SAPS didn't know about it, so we didn't really probe or look further into it. But what was quite astonishing was when we were at the Madlanga Commission and we heard that this is the address of Mogotsi's co-handler there from Bryanston as well. So it linked that's the reason why the PKTT would have raided that property a few days ago, because Mogotsi at times was, in a way, attempting to mislead the commission by saying that his handler was the late Brigadier Duma.
Indeed, we had word of that particular raid in Bryanston. We were not sure. Police didn't want to say anything. And it emerged at the commission under questioning on Friday. Brown Mogotsi saying that his crime intelligence handler had his house in Bryanston raided. We were sure that a number of seizures were made. However, Pule, let's go back to the arrest of General Firoz Khan from crime intelligence and General Ibrahim Kadwa, the head of the Hawks in Gauteng.
Right.
You remember we had a tip-off at about 7 o'clock that Sunday morning.
Yeah.
And we were the first to break the news right here on ENCA, saying that 2 top cops were arrested.
In the morning, actually.
In the morning.
Yeah.
And we named them immediately. And we are often asked, and the police don't name these people because they say, they wait for them to appear in court. But we name them like we often do with all other arrests, because we believe it's in the public interest. if these people are arrested, and we know from our sources, 3 or more sources that they've been arrested, we break the news. And I remember when you raced to the Houghton, where General Khan was arrested, you saw all the activity, the movement, and within an hour or two, he was then taken away and he appeared in court on Monday. Those particular charges relate to an incident dating back a few years, where a security guy from Durban was allegedly transporting gold to Durban. He was intercepted at OR Tambo. The scanners picked it up, and the rest is history.
Sure.
I say the rest is history because it now has to come before a court of law.
Cool.
General Khan allegedly told General Kadua to release him. They say it was a crime intelligence operation. And all 3 of them, when they appeared in court and they were given bail, there was no opposition to bail in that particular case. They were given bail very quickly. But in all the other cases that we've covered, including the one of the alleged killer of Marius Fameva, the former task force member who was applying for bail. We know what happened in the taxi boss Joe Ferrari case. We know what happened in the Brown Mogotsi case. And I can go on and on. It appears that these raids, these arrests are not strategically, they're well planned and well executed. So they would normally take the suspects on a Friday or Saturday or even a Sunday morning, hold them in custody for a night or 2 or 3. Then when they appear, they'll ask for a 7-day postponement. They will then oppose bail. And it gives these suspects a bit of time to feel how life is behind bars.
Yeah.
And the other day when we counted, we have at least 25 or 26 senior police officials in the dock. And I'm talking of the last 3 months.
That's quite scary.
Right
Senior officials and generals as well involved.
The National Police Commissioner, General Fani Masimola, to brigadiers, to major generals, and I think the lowest rank is the famous or infamous Sergeant Fani Nkosi.
And they're still pending investigations.
And who, by the way, appeared in Toyando on another charge. and don't be surprised, over the coming weeks, more charges are going to be added. But again, Pule, like we've been predicting, and I think the acting Minister of Police, Firoz Kachalia, said it in Parliament this week, you can expect more arrests like the arrests we've seen with Brown Mogotsi. There is no doubt that more cops are going to be arrested. You and I have been saying for a long time, we have information that more warrants have been issued. They're just waiting for the right time to take these people in. So I think we're going to see a lot of action over the coming weeks. And as the Madlanga Commission resumes on the 1st of June, where more witnesses are going to take the stand. And you're right, Pule, to come back to your first point you were making. The likes of businessman Suleiman Karim has to return to the commission. We know that other people have to return to the commission. I think the only exception so far that we know of is Lieutenant General Shedrick Sibia, the suspended Deputy National Police Commissioner for Crime Detection, who confirmed that the commission said...
Where is Sibia, by the way? Where is he, Yusuf? Where is he?
Sibia, you remember the last time we visited him was at his house in Centurion on his small holding when the PKTT raided him last year sometime. And that is when they seized all his devices and telephones. But I'm even told that it appears that that is one of many investigations. Rukia, the big question is, and people have been saying, when are the likes of General Sibia going to be arrested? Remember, it's good to make an allegation, whether it's corruption, whether it's perjury, defeating the ends of justice, but to prove it and to take the docket to the NPA to see if you've got a winnable case is a different argument.
Which I wanted to get in there now.
And the same with the IPID, the Ikuruleni investigation on the murder of a suspect some years ago.
Which is a conversation I was having with Lizzie, and obviously I'd want you to touch on this as well, where she says that the Emmanuel Mbense and Precious Stones case, right, which happened I think in Rosebank, Johannesburg, Emmanuel Mbense and Brakpan, this is what Marius Fameva was testifying about. She says the engagements of the DPP on this matter are at an advanced stage, right? And then on the Musikili case, on the Musikili case, she says IPID is awaiting final decision from the DPP. However, when you look at the cops that have been implicated from the city of Tshwane, IPID is not looking into these cases.
Pule, I tweeted it the other day and I asked a question.
Oh, and by the way, this is new information. I think Ayob our producer will be happy about this. This is new information. No one has information regarding the status of these cases.
IPID ought to be independent. It's the Independent Police Investigation Directorate. In terms of the law, they report to the Minister of Police, which in my view, I've been saying for a very long time is a problem. IPID, are they truly independent? I often have to wonder, and I ask the question, and we know that IPID's workload is heavy.
It's crazy.
When I interviewed the acting head of IPID last year on Crime Watch, she said that they simply cannot cope. They have thousands and thousands of cases.
We heard that at the commission as well.
Correct.
Yeah.
But it does raise the question. Here you have a case, the Mbenzi case, where the suspect was murdered. His body was dumped in a dam in Brakpan, on the outskirts of Brakpan. Marius Fameva came to the commission, and you were there when he testified in camera, so to speak. And he was called Witness D. And eventually we know what happened to Marius Fameva. So IPID has been acting very, very slow. I don't know if they have the resources or they don't have the evidence, but here we are weeks later when we know that the docket has been taken to the National Director of Public Prosecutions. We know that cops, metro cops are implicated. We know one or two civilians from the security industry are implicated. We know that Julius Makonazi, the deputy suspended EMPD chief, is implicated. But the big question is, why no arrest? 4 or 5 years later.
In fact, when and I want you to also like zoom into this. We need to be very careful. CRTT Commission recommended a task team looking into what has been unearthed. The Madlanga
by
Commission.
the way, the Minister of Police, Firoz Kachali, and his budget vote referred to them as a Madlanga task team, and yet the police have been issued a statement to say, please don't call them the Madlanga task team.
Well, they made an arrest and arrested Julius Mkhwanazi and of course Kagiso Leruta for a separate case. Nothing relates to the Madlanga Commission. But we got wind of the fact that IPID was not impressed by this because they are of the view that their case looking into Julius Mkhwanazi is almost final, and they believe that the CRTT perhaps jumped the gun, and IPID are the ones who have the docket looking into this matter.
And the same sentiment we had when Joe Ferrari and his co-accused were arrested.
Correct.
We know those arrests were executed by the Mpumalanga Organised Crime Unit. Now, Pule, I get the sense, and I don't have evidence, but I get the sense there is a turf war between the police, IDEC, which falls under the NPA, and IPID, which ought to be independent. The one is trying to outshine the other. Now we know when the likes of General Kumalo and members of the crime intelligence were arrested by IDEC, the police were very upset, and they are still upset. We know, for example, when certain other individuals were arrested, certain elements within IDEC, IPID, and the police were also not very, very impressed. So, and I hope not. I hope not that we're dealing here with a turf war or so-called tit-for-tat arrest. Because if that is true, our criminal justice system is going to go down further into the hole. And we cannot afford that. Law enforcement agencies, Pule, I don't have to tell you, they have to work together. And I think at this time, with so much misinformation, we have to be very, very careful, because just the other day, social media was saying there's a warrant of arrest for the KZN Provincial Commissioner, Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Makonazi, who, by the way, is going to be the newsmaker of the year for the National Press Club next week.
I actually wanted to ask you now, because I just got a message here saying that, good day, colleagues, please be reminded, Sergeant Fani Nkosi is appearing at the Pretoria North Magistrate Court on the 21st of May. I believe that's tomorrow, right? Or 21st, or whenever it is.
You know, Pule, the problem is there are so many of these guys appearing every day. I think it's difficult to keep touch with it, because even tomorrow, Marius Fameva's alleged killer is continuing his bail application in Boksburg. We know that
he's in trouble. I mean, it seems as though the evidence against him is overwhelming. That's Mr. Soteni. And as far as we understand, Marius sent messages on a WhatsApp group chat to say there was a Suzuki that was following him with this number plate, and that's the car that Soteni was in, which belongs to his girlfriend, and they live together in Basonia, and the wife lives with children in Bedford View. But clearly, this shows is someone who has the means to afford these two families. But here's what's quite intricate in this document. Soteni is apparently refusing to show the court his payslip and who's paying him, which is what is quite concerning, because we know that the firearms that are found in his house were linked to company Tactical Security Services, TSS, which is also quite prominent as well.
Yeah, indeed, Pule. When I listened to his evidence in the form of an affidavit read out by his advocate on Tuesday this week, clearly he's denying that he was involved in the shooting. However, he does acknowledge that he knew Vianre Pretorius, the undercover or former policeman or reservist policeman
yeah.
that took his own life. And there was also in the evidence led by the prosecution saying that in the run-up to Marius van der Merwe being shot that particular night at his house in Brakpan, a black vehicle was following him. He put a number plate on, and that black vehicle is registered in Sotseni's wife's name. Interestingly enough, they were together. He said he dropped him at the police station. Viandre's partner or girlfriend then came to pick him up. The cell phones went off simultaneously around the time that Marius van der Merwe was shot.
Yeah.
I must say, yes, perhaps there could be no direct link, but in my view, without preempting the court decision, either for bail or for trial, I think that there is enough circumstantial evidence. And I'll be very surprised because, remember, he is facing 16 charges. One of murder, 3 or 4 of attempted murder. They found AK-47 rounds. They found ammunition. They found a firearm at his house. And you remember I posted that video on social media when the PKTT took him down. Quickly, within minutes, heavily armed tactical unit members took him down. They arrested him and they brought him before a court of law. So he is denying the allegations against him. And this is a Schedule 5 offense, like we've seen in a number of the cases in the Schedule 5 offense. And while bail is a right to everyone, if there's a very strong case and if there's evidence that you're going to be interfering with state witnesses or that you're going to become a fugitive, bail will often be denied. And we saw Sergeant Fanny Nkosi being denied bail. We saw that Fadil Adams, a member of parliament, spending over a week behind bars and finally getting bail.
And still talking.
So I think a lot of focus is on our courts, but the Kwaggafontein case where the prosecutor failed to pitch up on Monday, that led to the 4 suspects being freed, has been a talking point for the week. And like I said on ENCA the other day, the focus is purely, it appears, on the prosecutor. But let's not forget that the chief magistrate of Mpumalanga demanded
and we were there.
We were there. And when we met the magistrate Erasmus in his chambers before, and he told us clearly that I've been instructed, I'm not listening to the case. I have to postpone it to Friday, which was quite strange. And eventually, Friday, the chief magistrate came. She heard the case. She postponed it to Monday. The prosecutor didn't pitch for whatever reason. He now claims he feared for his life, and that she held him in contempt of court, issued a warrant for his arrest, and released the 4 suspects. But again, I think the state or the prosecution is ready or about to serve a re-enlistment of that particular case. So we're going to find those 4 people, the 4 suspects within the taxi industry be in the dock again very soon.
I want to go back to the Soteni case, right? Because we know that his previous bosses, and you can confirm, Mohammed Syed, Carl Phillips from Carnelix, of course, the tobacco giants as well, these companies running tobacco, right? And we know that Phillips lives in Basonia as well, and this is where Soteni was residing. So it ties with the stuff we have seen in that affidavit, right? But also, I just want to find out something, because I find it very strange that the applicants, Soteni's employer, refused to share information relating to his remuneration or salary. And why didn't the investigating officer get a warrant? I don't know why, because cases are delayed for years because of such crucial information and outstanding ballistic reports as well.
Indeed. So Soteni confirmed to the court that he worked for Mohammed Said, one of the partners at Carlinings, for a long time. He says that he doesn't own an AK-47. Said owned an AK-47 when he worked for him. And we know that these people within the tobacco industry have a lot of bodyguards, they've got a lot of protectors. And we know very well, Pule, that a lot of questions have been asked. In fact, the first attorney that went to represent him, Soteni fired him straight away, and we believe it was one of his former employees or employee who would send that particular lawyer there, and then he hired another legal team. I think a lot is going to come out from this particular hearing. We know that the tobacco industry is very often tainted with a lot of wrongdoing. And interestingly enough, in his testimony, I picked up in an affidavit where he said that he met Viandre Pretorius at an illicit cigarette raid or a seizure that was made on the East Rand. And at that time, he probably was working for this particular tobacco company. And then him and Mohammed Said, according to Sotseni, had a fallout. There was an incident in Cape Town, and they had a fallout, and he was then they then parted ways. And I'm told that that particular incident might be relating to an incident where on a boat in Cape Town, where one of the bodyguards of Said was sitting on the edge of the boat, and they allowed him to sit there, and he refused to move, and he fell out off the boat, and then I think he lost his legs or something to that effect. So that is the incident that apparently led to their fallout. But again, I think a lot of stories will still have to come out. Let's not forget that this particular accused was a member of the very elite police task force, and they've
well
been
trained as well. A good sniper we hear.
And it was confirmed that when Marius Fameva, witness D, was shot, it was one shot to the head. It was somebody in a passenger seat that shot him. And again, interestingly enough, he confirms in his affidavit that when they drove around that particular area, Brakpan, Viandre was driving and he was in the passenger seat. I'm not saying that he pulled the trigger, but it does raise a lot of questions from the affidavit he's already given during the bail application.
Before we wrap, obviously, I want to summarize it again with phase 2. I want to know for you, who was probably the Mampara or Mumish of phase 2, because here you have Brown Mogotsi, you have Sergeant Nkosi, you have all these characters. But also, in hindsight, is there a world in which you would imagine the likes of Brown Mogotsi and, of course, Sergeant Fani Nkosi turning state witness?
Well, there were reports the other day that Vusiket Matlala is planning to blow the whistle and planning to turn state witness.
In fact, they're also saying that he wants non-custodial, non-custody imprisonment if he's to go Section 204, which I think is almost impossible.
Pule, what usually happens, if there's overwhelming evidence against an accused, they will turn so-called Section 204 witness, which means that if you testify honestly, openly, and the magistrate or the judge finds it, they give you indemnity from prosecution. I wouldn't be surprised that we're going to find one or two people turning state witness. And yes, in the first report, we had 6 referrals, all of them law enforcement officials. I'll be very keen to see in the second report, which is coming out, or which is going to be presented to the president before the 29th of this month, whether the commission are going to list so-called civilians or politicians, the likes of Brown Mogotsi, the likes of suspended police minister Senzo Mkunu, who, by the way, I can't understand how he is still on gardening leave. That man should have been fired long ago. There might not be any criminal element to it, but clearly he used his political influence and it was outside his ambit to demand the closure of the PKTT. All right, we have an acting police minister. Right, we have an acting national police commissioner. The longer it's going to take Pule to get stability within the South African police service, the longer the criminals are going to smile all the way to the bank. Because criminals take advantage of the situation. And disruptions within the police service, the problems within the criminal justice system is playing right in the hands of these organized crime syndicate leaders. But I'm quite confident we're going to see a number of more names coming up in the second referrals. And I think the law enforcement agencies are going to move swifter and very much quicker in bringing these people and bringing them in the dock.
What do you make of the metros? Ekurhuleni already under the spotlight. TMPD phase 2 was central. We saw the alleged tender irregularities and just how some of the senior officials were compromised in TMPD. And next, we understand we're going to Johannesburg, where they'll be looking into a serious a fleet tender contract to the tune of about over R1 billion, which was awarded. Blue lights and security services again being recruited based on irregular contracts or tendering systems.
Ekurhuleni is a mess, a royal mess. I don't have to tell you. City of Tshwane, what came out of the commission, millions paid to security companies for so-called ad hoc services for work that was never done. We know that Sergeant Nkosi was interfering there, and he was trying to use his influence with the city manager, with the deputy TMPD chief. Clearly, we need to see some decisive action, either with the SIU or with the NPA or with the police or with IPID. City of Johannesburg, we were told that a number of investigations are ongoing. We know that a Metro police cop from Johannesburg, he was working very closely with Molife, who was out on bail, also awaiting trial. That particular cop still has to come before the commission. We are told there's talk about security contracts in the city of Johannesburg.
Correct.
So when it comes to local government, Pule, there's no doubt we're going to see some action over the coming weeks. And let's not forget, we're in an election year. November the 4th is election day. And in the build-up to election day, I think a lot of rot is still going to come out. And you spoke to the DA in the city of Tshwane, and they've also come up with a dossier implicating a number of politicians in Pretoria, in the capital. So that still has to be the subject of investigation. So yes, what we are seeing as far as the 3 metros are concerned, very, very concerning. But again, the quicker we see a finalization, the better it will be for stability within the criminal justice system and specifically within the South African Police Service.
I know this is not in relation to the Madlanga Commission, but I think it's very important. I know our producer is going to just give me a lash for this for wasting time, but the MMC, who is facing charges of kidnapping and pointing a firearm to a minor as well. We just got a statement from the lawyers as well regarding the true reflective events of what happened. But this is quite serious because we understand she was arrested but didn't appear in court. We're now seeing the DA saying they're going to be making representations to the National Director of Public Prosecutions, once again casting light on senior public officials being involved in this particular incident. She's not the only one. There are other MMCs, you understand, are facing a number of controversial issues as well, such in relation to misconduct and acting out of the mandate of their office, Yusuf.
Indeed, Pule, that particular arrest of the MMC in Johannesburg, they tried to hide it away. We had word of it. We had insight into some of the police reports. We know that the MMC allegedly, together with a bodyguard, her bodyguard, or I don't know if it's from a security company or a city of Johannesburg bodyguard, apparently she found a daughter walking the street with a youngster of about 15 or 16 years old. There was a problem. They allegedly kidnapped the youngster. They assaulted him. There was a pointing of a firearm. And the youngster or his family then opened a charge with police that saw the MMC being arrested, spending a few hours, if not overnight, behind bars. There was then a withdrawal statement, and the charges were withdrawn, and the matter wasn't enrolled before a court of law. Be it as it may, even if the charges were withdrawn, there needs to be a full investigation as to why the charges were withdrawn, as to what happened. And remember, even if a charge is withdrawn, the NPA can still enroll a matter and they can still press for charges. So I'm very keen to see how that particular arrest is going to unfold. I don't think that that particular debate or argument is going to go away.
She says our client's concern arose from her prior objections to the relationship, like you just mentioned. However, it must be categorically mentioned that at no stage was the minor boy held against his will, nor was he assaulted or threatened with a firearm. Following a brief discussion, the minor boy left peacefully and returned home. Our client's intention was simply to address the situation, right? She says our client was thereafter surprised to learn that the police were looking for her. She presented herself to the police station where she was arrested. The complainant subsequently withdrew the case. The matter was never enrolled in court, and our client therefore appeared before the Roodepoort. Our client therefore never appeared before the Roodepoort Magistrates Court. We further emphasize that our client is currently undergoing difficult, emotional, distressing, and I think they said she lost her mom.
But I think again,
all that. So what do you make? Is there a case here if the DA is going to the NDPP?
Charges were opened. There was an arrest made.
Yeah.
The charges were withdrawn. It wasn't enrolled.
And statements obtained.
Correct. I think the DA or whoever might have a case for the NPA and the police to answer, because these are very serious allegations. And as much as the MMC is denying the allegations, there needs to be a full investigation. And at the end of the day, the NPA, the national director, can then make a decision whether to prosecute or not.
Okay.
But be it as it may, Pule, we're in a very critical stage in South Africa. We've been breaking these stories almost by the day of arrests, of search and seizure warrants, of people implicated in crime. And there is no way, in my view, we're going to see this action disappearing. Stay close to ENCA, stay close to our social media accounts for these stories, because you can be assured that once we have confirmation of a story or arrest being made from our sources, and even if the police don't confirm it, you'll be able to get the news first here on on ENCA.
So, Momisha Mampara of the phase 2, who of the witnesses of the Madlanga Commission, who are you giving it to?
No, I wouldn't
Who
say.
are you crowning with this?
I wouldn't
clownish?
even call him the Mampara of the week or the Mampara of the month.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be the Mampara of the year or the Mampara of the day.
Okay. The wheeler and dealer.
The wheeler and dealer, clad in a red tuxedo or a red
crop
jacket.
top t-shirt.
Let me not incriminate myself, but I think that award will go to the infamous Brown Mogotsi.
Okay, now thank you very much, Yusuf, for joining us, of course. This is SA Explained, and we'll be back with more in a couple of weeks when the Madlanga Commission returns on the 1st of June.